Hello there, this is Mr. Frazier, and I'm going to go through the test corrections for Chapter 5. Hopefully you go to my Moodle page and you download a copy of the actual original test. Please remember that all of the test forms were the same form. The only thing that was different were the multiple choice answers were scrambled. So we're going to go through on how you were supposed to do the test, and then hopefully you remember that your job in order to retake the test is to do the test corrections. And to do the test corrections, you have to rewrite the original question. You have to then show the work, give me the correct answer, and then you need to tell me what you did wrong originally. So there's 4 things. Write the original question, show the work, have the right answer, and more importantly, or the most important, is tell me what you did wrong originally. Now I'm going to go through some common mistakes while we're here, but this really should not take that long. There were only 24 points on the test. I gave a total of 25. Gave a bonus point if you're able to follow the directions on the test. Okay, so problem number 1 was an interest problem. It was relatively easy. They gave you the actual formula. It's a simple interest problem. So with simple interest, you're supposed to use this formula, P of 0 plus P of 0 times rate times time. So you just had to put in the right numbers and make sure you change the percent to a decimal. So the initial deposit was $500, so it would be 500 plus, and then here you put 500 times 0.04. And the amount of time they wanted was after 1 year, so it was times 1. Type that into your scientific calculator that you're supposed to get. Hopefully you know this is one of the ones I've told you should buy, because it does, you literally type in exactly what you have there on the screen. So it would be 500 plus parentheses 500 times 0.04 and parentheses times 1, hit equal, and the answer was 520. Right? Many of you didn't have a scientific calculator. It was unfortunate. You have had 22 weeks in which to get one. I believe that's ample time. Problem 2 says which function represents, and the original one was this, and we wanted the coordinate notation. So you're supposed to be paying attention to the parentheses. There are no parentheses, so this happens outside the parentheses, so this tells me I'm moving up and down. Now, they even told you it was a vertical translation, which means move up and down. Hopefully you knew that changes the y, not the x. Okay? So this means plus 1, which means I go up 1, which means my x stays the same. It's my y that changes. Vertically, up 1, so it would be correct, y plus 1. 3. Again, this time it was a compound interest problem. And compound interest is P of O, 1 plus your rate to the t power. Okay? And all they wanted was the correct formula. So in other words, they gave you several different functions, and you were supposed to put the correct one for the compound interest rate. Okay, so you put the original amount in. The difference is you have to make sure you put 1.2% as 0.012, and that's usually where most people make the mistake, putting the decimal in for the percent. Problem 4. We're supposed to write this as a single power, which means it's 10 to the negative second. Why? Because when you have fractions, you have to move it over the fraction bar, and it changes from 10 to the second here to 10 to the negative second up top. All right, problem 5. It says, which function shows a horizontal shift? Horizontal means left and right. So that means any shift that occurs is supposed to be in the parentheses. So when we started the test, I told you over and over again that you should start by writing this or writing this. So that you understood what happens in parentheses is left or right. What happens outside is either up or down. And in the parentheses, everything is opposite. So, for problem 5, you would then go, oh, I need a horizontal shift to the left too. Okay, well, left or right means I have to have parentheses, and it's the opposite. Left usually means negative, so I would add 2 in the parentheses. So you're looking for, inside the parentheses, the addition of 2. Pretty easy. Okay? So that means whatever's there, I'm looking for the inside parentheses like this. All right, problem 6. They want you to write the range, which means when you have a function, the range is all of your x's or y's. Hopefully you know it's all of your y's. And what's another symbol for y? F of x. So you needed an f of x, and hopefully you know it was greater than what? 1/4. Greater than 0. So your answer would be f of x is greater than 0. 7. They give you the graph. Whenever you have a negative sign, so now we go back to where we were before, in the parentheses and out of the parentheses. If you have a negative sign on the outside of the parentheses, you're flipping your graph up or down. If the negative sign is inside the parentheses, you're flipping your graph left or right. Okay, this was outside the parentheses, so you would take everything, this is kind of real brief, so everything that's here comes down, and everything down goes up. So that's what your reflection looks like. Problem 8. They want to know y-intercepts of the functions. Okay. Hopefully you understand the base function was this. And both of those are changes in up and down. Why? Because it's happening outside the parentheses. So this one is up 2 units, and this one would be minus 2 units. Okay. Number 9 was a reflection. Okay. They want it to go over the horizontal line, which means they want it to go up and down. So where does the negative sign need to be? It needs to be outside of the x. Well, this one was tricky because the function they gave you already had a negative sign outside of the x. So that means if you're supposed to flip it, you'd have to add a negative sign here, and hopefully you understand that 2 negatives make a positive, correct? So this should have been 3 to the x. 10. This was recognizing a pattern. Hopefully you see that it was increasing by the same amount every time. Anything that increases by the same amount every time is linear. It's called a slope. So you would just have whatever it is increasing. Problem number 11 became an issue because it's compound interest. And for this one, you were supposed to use 1 minus the rate. The reason it was 1 minus is because they're saying the population is decreasing. Problem 12, you just use your calculator. Trying to find the cube root. So that means you'd hit 3 cube root of 64 equal, and it was 4. Problem 13, which shows the function f of x, 7x. So that means my basic function was this. And they want a vertical translation, which means it happens outside the parentheses of down 4. Problem 14. The numbers are not growing at a constant rate, which means it's supposed to be exponential. So you can see one of those is automatically crossed off because it doesn't have any exponents. And what's the only way we can get the answer of 1? If we were to raise something to the 0 power. So you know that the base number is supposed to be 3 because they're all multiples of 3, 3, 9, 27. The problem is 3 to the 0 power gives me 1. So what math problem, when I make it 1, blank equals 0? Hopefully you know it's 1 minus 1 equals 0. Okay. 15. Again, they gave you the equation, and they wanted a horizontal asymptote of the function, and you're supposed to know that the asymptote is always correct. A horizontal line of what? Even though it's the x-axis, it is the problem of y equals 0. Problem 16, again, another formula problem. You just plug it in. It was 1 plus because it's compound interest. Okay. 1 plus because it's compound interest. Problem 17. It said which one of those is translated from 3 to the x. So you're now supposed to take 3 to the x. And it says it wants you to translate it up, which means it's outside of the parentheses, which means it'll be plus 5. All right. And you're done. If it had said move left to right, then you would have put a math problem inside the parentheses. Number 18, they wanted you to translate it 3 units to the left. So this would be 5, and it's x plus 3, because it's the opposite, so it's inside the parentheses. Next one was 2x, and it wanted a translation of down, so it would be 2x minus 6. Notice, inside the parentheses, outside the parentheses. And it all goes back to the little notes I should have written. We'll do the same for all of them. Problem 19. How to write it in rational form. That means the number that is the index is my denominator. So this was 10, and if there's no exponent there, it would be to the first. This would be 10 to the 1/3. So the funny part about this is 19 and 20 were direct opposites of each other. So if you could do 20, you should have been able to go backwards and do 19. Okay. The d would have been, so let's just make one up here. If it would have been the 5th root of d squared, you would write it d to the 2/5. Okay. Many of you missed this because you didn't write it as an exponent. You wrote it as this. That's 10 third. So unfortunately, that would not be correct. It has to be 10 to the 1/3 as an exponent. All right. Hopefully you do the test corrections. And if you have any questions, you come after school and ask me. I look forward to seeing you retaking the test.